And for me, when I go and talk to different schools, I always tell the kids, I know it sounds corny, but really the decisions that you make today really do affect your future. And I can honestly say, like you said, looking back, like, how did that happen? Every decision that I made, fortunately, I didn't make them blindly. I had some great mentors along the way.
Right.
Not saying, hey, if you do this, you're going to end up at the White House, but it was like, hey,
No.
if you do this, you're going to put yourself in a better position to do some greater things. And to this day, I'm always grateful to all the mentors that poured into me and helped me to make maybe decisions that I definitely would not have made on my own,
Right.
but with their guidance, it put me in a position to really do something different.
Empower you to inspire our listeners to live their best, audacious lives ever. I'm really thrilled and happy that you're here to join us as we dive into topics that will help you unleash your fullest potential and embrace the possibilities that life has to offer. Now, on that note of embracing possibilities, we'll be diving deeper into that topic on this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. Today, we have the honors of speaking with Darrell Williams, a remarkable individual whose life journey took him from Compton, California, all the way to the White House, and his journey exemplifies resilience, mentorship, and the audacity to pursue greatness. Without any further ado, here's Darrell Williams. Enjoy. Hey, Daryl, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's such a treat. I appreciate you making the time like this, my friend.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I know we were back and forth a little while trying to make it work, but it doesn't matter anything else because we're here now. We're chatting, and that's probably the most important thing in all this. Um, on this podcast, we focus so much time, energy, and dedicated to helping individuals live that best audacious life that we talk about, and then that pathway to get there is not going to be the same for everyone. Everyone's going to have different journeys and different obstacles and challenges and things that get to where they get to. But the point is that they get there. And so maybe as a starting point, I get you to sort of talk about your very unique pathway that ended up with a very unique ending, so to speak.
Absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. My beginning was a little bit different than most people. For me, I grew up in Compton, California. So those that may not be familiar with that, they remember the movie Boys in the Hood. That's the era that I grew up in, and my two brothers and sisters grew up in um, the time frame of Straight Out of Compton. So
Yeah.
that's exactly where we grew up. And when I was growing up at that time, it was the fourth most dangerous city in America.
Mm.
And again, everything you saw in the movie was pretty much what it was like. I've always joked with people. I didn't realize helicopters didn't fly over people's homes until I left and went to a whole nother state. And like, oh wow, that's not normal. So that's the background that I grew up in. And for me, it was just a wonder of, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't have the money for college. Grades were okay, but I just knew that, my family struggled a lot when we were growing up. And I just ran into a recruiter, I think it was on a weekend, oddly, and it was amazing. I had no thoughts of joining the military. Matter of fact, I was
Right.
trying to lose the guy, and he kept tracking me down and wouldn't let me go. And he finally asked me the question, hey, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And I was like, I don't know. I think I named some college just to get him off my back. And man, this guy opened up this book and it had like all the cost for colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this aha moment came on, like, okay, this is about to get real. What are you going to do? You're a junior. And then for me, I listened to him and I was like, you know what? This military thing doesn't sound like a bad gig.
Right.
Reached out to a couple of cousins. One was in the Navy, one was in the Army, but they didn't finish the whole tour. They only did like 2 years and got out.
Mm-hmm.
And just from hearing their advice, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go for this thing. And man, one of the most best professional decisions that I ever made.
Wow.
Went into the military, the human resources background, and it was just amazing the different places I was able to go to. First assignment in Germany, then I went to the Pentagon, and then from there, my career really took a turn and found myself at the White House Communications Agency, supporting President Bush Sr., and then eventually President Clinton. And the whole time, oddly, I'm at this place like, man, is this a dream or what? Am I going
Right.
to wake up and like find out that I wasn't supposed to be here? Because you just couldn't imagine, going straight from the hood to the house.
That's yeah. Well, it's a remarkable journey for some, and I guess when you're in the moment that you're in it, you're just caught up in the moment. You're like, I would imagine, I mean, you would correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just kind of going from one step to the next, and you're not necessarily thinking about this is a whole journey. You're going, well, this is the next step. And the piece I love that I'm going to instantly connect that back to the podcast, because so much of the choices that we make them blindly, not knowing where it's going to go. We just make them trusting that this is a right in that moment. And it's only when you step back and look at the full journey, you say, oh my gosh, I went from here to here to here. There's an expression I heard, and I coin every so often, is that when we live life forward, it's an art. But when we stop back and look at it, it's a science. So when you stop back and look and you see where all the dots connected and where everything made sense, but in that moment, you don't know. Like, and nor do you have the long-term vision that you'll end up in the White House.
Absolutely not. And for me, when I go and talk to different schools, I always tell the kids, I know it sounds corny, but really the decisions that you make today really do affect your future. And I can honestly say, like you said, looking back, like, how did that happen? Every decision that I made, fortunately, I didn't make them blindly. I had some great mentors along the way.
Right.
Not saying, hey, if you do this, you're going to end up at the White House, but it was like, hey,
No.
if you do this, you're going to put yourself in a better position to do some greater things. And I just, to this day, I'm always grateful to all the mentors that poured into me and helped me to make maybe decisions that I definitely would not have made on my own.
Right.
But with their guidance, it put me in a position to really do something different.
Yeah, yeah. You touched on mentors. Talk about the significance of having mentors in their lives that can help us.
And I'm telling you, I always say two things. One, it's not a problem in the world that can't be solved by leadership. And then second, there's no journey that you can make without a great mentor. I don't care who you think you are, that you made it by yourself. It's probably not true, because the greatest things that happened to my life was because of mentors. And what I tell people is, you have to be intentional, just
Right.
like anything else. If you're intentional about getting married, intentional about being a great father, you have to be intentional about looking for mentors that's going to help you get to your next, whatever that next is. And
Right.
to this day, I have not found anybody on any journey that couldn't find a mentor to help take them there.
Yeah, the part about mentorship that I love is they essentially give you the opportunity to reduce the learning curve of life, right? They're taking their own experiences, or maybe experiences that were passed along to them from someone else, and they're saying, hey, you know what? Think about this, and this is what's going to happen down this road. Not that you can't do it, right? But just think of that as the option, and then it just opens up it opens up the sort of the world for you. But the most important thing, what it also does, it helps you avoid the pitfalls that they made.
Absolutely. And I was really fortunate because a lot of my mentors, even back then, they were using what I call a coaching leadership style, where they really didn't tell me what to do, but they were asking me some great questions that made me really think about, okay, so if you do this, what are some of the possibilities,
Right.
right? You want to go there. What are you not thinking about? What are some other things that could happen? And if they do, what option do you have? So they always ask me the great questions that allow me to figure out that answer on my own.
Got you. Got you. Do you remember that first experience walking into the White House? Like,
Yeah, it was, matter of fact, it was me and one of my other friends. He was from Huntsville, West Virginia. And never forget, we were both walking up the steps because I think we had to go pick up something that day or to get a badge done or something. And when we were both coming down the step, we both paused at the same time. We both looked at each other oddly, and we were like, like word for word, like, can you imagine, right? Two kids from Compton and Huntington, West Virginia, standing on the steps of the White House. Like, what are the odds? And it was just amazing.
that's one of those pinch me moments. Like, is this real kind of a thing? I'd imagine.
It really was. Definitely
Man.
was.
So communications is your background. Talk about the work that you did and how you were able to get to the White House with that communications background.
So here's the interesting. My background is actually human resources.
Okay.
But like I tell people a lot of times, even to this day, a lot of my best friends think I was communications. I'm like, no, no, I was HR, but I had a mind to learn.
Okay.
Every trip that I went on, it was almost like, okay, I'm here. Okay, now I got to get past that stage. Now the next step is, how do I stay there? How do I make my mark? Because when you go to an agency like that, they bring the best of the best from all the different
Got you.
services. So you
Right.
got all these great A-type personalities, and it's like the competition among yourselves pushes you to really bring this greatness out of you that you don't even know you have. But it's just a friendly competition where it's like, okay, Oddly did this trip, and man,
Right.
he got these accolades. So on my next trip, I got to top Oddly, and it was just some cool things. But what helped me out was every trip that I went on, even as a human resources person, I was mainly in a leadership role. So as I was in charge of the teams from the HR perspective, from the logistical perspective, I would go to each section and say, hey, tell me about this radio network.
Right.
Explain to me why we need this code. Explain to me why the Secret Service can't do their thing without us. And I would just always just keep soaking up all that information till I got to the point where it's like, okay, I would go to a satellite lead on my next trip and say, okay, test me on this one. You need this type of location, you need this type of storage, and you need this. And the reason you need it is because of that. And they were like, hey, you got it. You got it. So I would always try to remember every trip what they needed, why they needed it. And then most importantly, hey, if we can't get the ideal situation for you, what's the
Right.
next best thing? And just doing that over and over. And people are like, oh man, habits, hey, habits work, because when you keep doing that thing over and over, then it
Yep.
becomes second nature. And
Yep.
it really made me the lead that I became.
And at the time you're doing it, why exactly were you doing it?
So for me, when in that type of environment, a lot of people obviously see the president just showing up at a place, doing his
Right.
thing, and then
Yep.
leaving. But
Right.
what they don't realize that their communications, security, protection, and White House staff, like all of us, are behind the scenes a week before he gets there
Right.
to make sure everything goes in according to plan.
Right.
So my job being in charge of the teams, getting those teams out there. And then we had a communications officer that was over the whole team. But my job was taking care of the people. So for me, every day, just me going to everybody and getting the best out of them. If they had any challenges going on, my job was to remove those roadblocks. And
Right.
then people forget life goes on. So you could be on a trip and your wife is expecting, your children are not acting right in school, and the wife is calling you saying, you need to talk to him. And I have to find a way to help bring them off the ledge so they can focus and get back to the task at hand.
Man. So you were stepping into stuff that you wouldn't even see coming.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I had to really depend on, again, my leadership training, um, conversations that I've had with other mentors. And one of my greatest mentors is a guy named Steve Smith. I think the
Okay.
world of him, man. He was just one of those guys that was at the White House that really was like that go-to guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the point where if it was something crazy coming up, or even if I did it and I thought it was right, I would go back to Steve, like, hey, Steve, here's what happened on that trip. Here's
Right.
what I did. Was there a better way that I could have handled it? And he always took the time to share with me, like, hey, that was a good move. However, think about this next time and think about that. So just being able to have those go-to people. And then for us as leaders, don't be afraid to ask questions. Too many times, oddly, there's individuals that think that they have to know it
Right.
all.
Right.
And if I go ask Ollie, he's going to think different of me. And that's not
Right.
true, man. Iron
Mm-hmm.
sharpens iron. And I can share with you what happened on my mission, and then you share with me, and then we both grow.
Yes. Yeah. And this thing called humility, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
And it's the key. It really is the key to success.
As you're talking, Daryl, I can clearly, to me, relationships were important to you and have been important to you.
Man, relationships are everything to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. Because one thing I found out, when you're building those great relationships, that you're not trying to get something from somebody, but you just want to be a part of their journey,
Mhm.
It's amazing how that unlocks a door to so many future things. And then not only that, but here's the cool part about relationships. When you do it the right way, a lot of people will open up their network to you. So now
Yes.
you have this expanded network, not because you were looking for it, but just because of the relationship that you tended to and made sure that you protected either that time that you spent together, or if you went out to dinner with that person and you're like, no, this is on me because I'm just honored just to be in your presence, and
Yes.
they see that you respect their time, so now they want to return the favor and say, hey, aren't you working on this challenge? Hey, call this guy. I think he may have something that can help you in that journey. So to me, even to this day, relationships are everything.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's I remember sharing recently with a friend of mine. I said, one of my most biggest unlearnings that I had to do in my life is that the whole idea of I got where I got to by myself, right? And there's nothing I achieved alone. I might have thought I did in the moment, but when you stop back, you're no, 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 no. Someone along the way, whether it be a kind word, a suggestion, or something, helped get me to where I am, and it was through the power of relationships. So I'm glad that you sort of identified that as well too.
Absolutely. One thing I always share with people is, don't say no on somebody else's behalf. Like, I just know they're going to say no. Allow them to say no to you, because
Right.
you'd be so
Right.
surprised that no is not even in their vocabulary. Their thing is basically is, what do you need? How can I help? Um, what's that next step? They're
Right.
not even thinking about no. You're the one that's thinking no, and we have to get out of our own way.
Yeah, no, no, that's a great point. No, I like that. I'm gonna have to use that one, Daryl, because that is a
Sure.
real. That's a real one. Absolutely love everything about your story, Daryl. And I love the way you so eloquently, laid out your path and journey that you went there. And I'm guessing because it's your journey, it's really easy for you to sort of gloss over the challenges or the hardships, the adversity that you faced because you went through them. But I don't doubt that there were some difficult moments in you getting to the White House. I don't know if you can identify maybe one or two things that were tough for you to deal with or you had to deal with.
Yeah, I would say definitely some of the challenging things were, again, like I tell people, life still happens. Everybody thinks that just because you're supporting the president, that right, life just pauses so you can be in this great moment and everything works out right. But that's just not the case, especially when you're working with the equipment. I don't care what anything you can plan as much as you want. Murphy's Law is always in effect.
Right.
And I remember when I was supporting Vice President Cheney, we were on a trip, and man, it was just like things just were just not working right. And I
Mm.
was telling somebody on another podcast, one of the biggest things I never wanted to hear was the Vice President of the United States of America say, "Is there a problem?" Oddly, he knows they're the problem. I know that he knows they're the problem.
Right.
And
That
I
wasn't
was
the real
looking,
question. That wasn't
you're
the real
exactly
question.
right. But it's like, okay, how is he going to handle this? Right? He's going to be, and I was always up front, like, hey, Mr. Vice President, you're exactly right. There is a problem. However, here's what we're doing to rectify the issue. Here's a backup plan. If this doesn't work in the next 10 minutes, and I've already briefed the military aid, so we're all tracking, sir. So trust me, we're going to have something in place for you before you be able to do X.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, even though I can say it to you now, Ollie, and I'm not
Yeah.
sweating,
Yeah.
but at that time, man, you're like, this is it, man. This is that last trip where they're going to
Yeah.
go, dude, you couldn't cut the mustard. We got this bad report from the vice president. You're out of here, and
Mm.
it's just one of those things that you're always on point as to, how do I make this trip work? How do I put my team in the best place to win?
Yes.
And again, how do I remove those roadblocks so that we can all be our best?
Wow. Wow. No, I can certainly see where it gets challenging because just the pressure, right? There's a level of pressure, and then as well too. We're talking about pressure on the world on the global stage, right? You are front and center in front of everything, everyone, all the time. Like that's got to add something to the intensity of the moment, does it?
It really does. And I was telling somebody the other day, it's weird. It's almost like you're on this merry-go-round that's going fast, and you don't realize how fast it's going because you're in the moment, you're a part
Yes.
of it. But after you retire and you step away from it, you're like, holy smokes. I'm glad I never thought about it the way I'm thinking about it now, because I probably would have scared myself into
Gotcha.
not doing a good job. And it was so funny. We would come back from overseas missions, and because of, you're always thinking. And I remember my wife was like, you were talking in your sleep again last night. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
I'm so sorry. What was I saying? You were asking something about when is the next Secret Service meeting, and do we have all the equipment together?
Wow.
Is everybody good with their vehicle assignments? I'm like, I'm so sorry,
Oh,
babe. But
man.
that's the type of pressure you just live it every day, and it just becomes a part of you.
I guess it's a 24-hour job.
It really is. It really is. And even on, you have like, maybe you might have 5 days on and 2 days off. Even the 2 days off, you're still kind of watching the phone like, okay, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to get this, but should they call,
Yeah,
this how
yeah,
much time I have left
yeah.
to pack my bags and go get on the plane.
And again, because of the magnitude of what you're dealing with, it's like you've got to watch what's happening around the world, literally.
Oh yes, there's one of the things you're talking about, watching the news before the news became popular. It's like
Mm-hmm.
any foreign president, any foreign dignitary, if it was something significant. How about even a natural disaster? I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
I was at home and Hurricane Andrew hit Miami, and they were reaching out to people like, "Hey, we believe the president's going to go. This is Bush Senior, but we're not sure, so we need to get a team to be on standby." And then you kind of like, okay, I'm that person. And then you get a phone call that says, okay, now you're it. Go ahead and get to the airport.
Wow.
You don't have a team yet, but we're going to fly your team in from Colorado, because you got a whole nother day before he gets there. And then I never forget, we were at Andrews Air Force Base and we're getting ready to leave. And then we get another message that says, okay, change 22. He's coming today. We don't know if the team is going to make it.
Wow. Wow.
The 7 of you just make it happen. And I kid you
Wow.
not, this is one of my best stories or best moments, because I remember us getting on the plane and just like old school football, you're in the backyard. It's like, okay, when we land at the airport, Ollie, you're going to go here, go to the right.
Right.
You're going to get in the police car. You're going to go to the main place where he's going to go visit at this Salvation Army.
Yeah.
And then you're going to stay here. You're going to build the motorcade. And
Wow.
then after that, we're going to be good. All right, ready, break. And man, it's so amazing. Like I said, when you're in the moment, all you're thinking about is accomplishing that mission. But when it's over, you
Yes.
have such a sense of pride. Like, man, we made this thing
We
happen
did
in
it.
freaking 4 hours.
We
That's
did it.
awesome.
We did it. Well, and I know, and I obviously I know that there's protocols and there are things that are put in place, and there's plans, and you're visiting a place a week and a half before the dignitaries get there, all that kind of stuff. But there is an aspect, you got to tell me, there's stuff you're just operating on the fly. Like, you can't tell me everything's scripted, or is it?
No, you're right. Everything is not scripted. The main thing is he's going to land, he's going to do some things, and we got to make sure that that communication works. And I think for me, what helped out a lot was I was always that what if guy. So when I would visit my team members leading up to him coming, it was like, okay, what's the first place he's going to? Well, he's going to X. Okay, what's the equipment that we have there? Okay, got it. What happens if this piece of equipment does not work? What's our next steps? And I would always, it wasn't more of a stump to chump, but it was more of, let's
Yes.
just think
Plan.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the way I did it, Ollie, it wasn't like I was insulting their intelligence. It was like, hey, guys, let's kind of just run through this. And the more I started running through possible scenarios, the better our team got at it. So just like you said, things were unscripted, things didn't happen. It wasn't like we had to rethink it. It was like, oh, no, we talked about this. There's a truck here that's not going to be used, and the keys are going to be in this particular office. So all I got to do is get those keys, get in that van, take that extra equipment over to the other place, because we've already talked about this.
Yes. Yes.
So that was one of the best leadership style that I had, that I try to pass on to everybody, which is, let's always think through different scenarios, even if the first scenario works. But again, what would happen if?
Yeah. At some point, and again, pure speculation, Daryl, on my part, and you can tell me if I'm way off base here or not. I don't, please respect me. I'm not insulting. I don't want it to come off insulting in any way. But at some point, when, and again, I'm looking for my scenario.
Sure.
If I'm put in the White House to do this job, I gotta be looking around going, do I belong here? Like, how did I make it here? Questioning myself. We talk about a thing called the imposter syndrome that sort of seeps in, and you're wondering if you, and I think earlier you mentioned that you get the best of the best that are all here competing. Did you ever experience or go through that, or that like, hey, should I be here? What, do I belong here?
Absolutely. I would not be telling the truth if I didn't think, those types of things, because again, everybody's wired different. There are some people that thrived on that and they knew they belonged. But again, for me, I did ask myself, a few times, like, man, what am I doing here? What if I mess up? Am I gonna
Especially
mess? Am
considering
I
your background, like you're coming from Compton. Like, if you take all that into consideration, right?
absolutely? And it was one of the things that in the beginning, when you're there, you do have those thoughts.
Yeah.
But what helped me out a lot was, again, having those particular mentors that says, hey, I was like you were 4 years ago. So let me go ahead and help you out. Like you were just saying, avoid those pitfalls. Stop worrying about if you should be here or not. Stop thinking about what if I make a mistake. Focus on the mission and what can I do to help my team. And
Mm,
that was the best advice. Because when you're focusing on something greater than yourself,
yeah.
everything else is second nature. It's like, that's not even important right now. And then once I got comfortable enough to do that, I put another burden on my shoulder, which was, I want to be so good at this that they will give somebody else another opportunity that maybe might not have got that opportunity. They'll just say, you know what? That guy before that was from Compton, he was pretty savvy and really didn't let a lot rattle him. Maybe we can bring a couple more people like that because they're not easily rattled. So after a while, you get to the point where you move past imposter syndrome into, I need to make a mark. I need to open
Yep.
up a door because, first of all, I didn't get here without somebody else's shoulder that I was standing on.
That's
So
right.
now let me be that next bridge to the next generation.
Got you. So on that, with all the experiences and the things that you've done, and the wonderful, rich situation that you're involved in, how are you helping the next generation?
So with me, I take all those experiences, and one thing I do is become a mentor to someone else.
Okay.
Right. So I'm still part of the agency, but I'm part of our alumni association. So I'm very fortunate once a quarter, I still get to go there and talk to these newer members that's there. So I tell them about the alumni and what that's about. But then I get to go into the war story mode of, hey, the military is known for the buddy system, right? You don't go anywhere without your buddy. So
Right.
I'll get to share some stories about, individuals going to places that they shouldn't have went to, and they talk their buddy into, I got it, don't worry about it. I'll just meet you at the hotel. And when I tell them some of the scenarios that ended up happening to that person, like, no way, that didn't happen. I'm like, hey, it happened, but don't let it happen to you. So I get to share these. I mean, they're fun stories now that weren't fun
Sure.
at that time.
Of course not. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But instead of, being so rigorous with it and scaring them, it's a funny way of saying, hey, don't do this. Watch out for that. One of my favorite things I like to tell the single people is, hey, if you're in a location and normally you're dating people that are in this particular area, but maybe all of a sudden you get a little bit more attention than normal, hey, be careful because that might not be what you think it is.
And that's a real thing, isn't it?
It definitely can be.
Wow. Wow. No, it really opens up your perspective and things to be mindful of and wary of. And the world is a real place out there, right, Daryl? And so there's real pitfalls and real situations that we be mindful as individuals. I truly just love everything about what you've done, and we didn't even really talk about how much the military. I'm sure the military has had to play a huge role in your development, especially as a young man coming from the streets of Compton right to the military. That must have been from I can imagine maybe discipline and things of that nature. They're very strict, or
Ollie, it was the best discipline that I could have gotten because one thing I love about the military
Mhm.
is everybody comes in there with whatever that is from their background, whether you're
Yep.
from the city, from the country,
Mhm.
right? But I loved about the military, especially basic training, they break us down individually,
Yep.
but then they build us back up
Wow.
collectively. So even though you may be the fastest, you're a former athlete, I mean, they'll tell you, like, you're not going to pass basic training, unless your buddy passes with you. Like, what do you mean? You know, that guy can't catch up with me and do. That's not the point. You do this together. Everything we do is together. And that's one of the greatest things that the military taught me was it has to be more than you,
Gotcha.
right? You always think about others. And again, I tell people it started off with me individually, but that type of mentality helped me as a husband, because now it's not about me, but it's about my wife.
Sure.
It helped me as a father, because it's like it's not about my life now, but it's about my children. It helped me as a community leader, because now it's not because I got mine, but how do I help somebody else get to their better life? So the military helped me in so many different ways, the discipline, but mainly just the mindset of it's not about you. It's always about something greater than yourself.
Gotcha. And I think that is a powerful, especially the military. That's a powerful, lesson to learn, and that you can take with you and help others. I'd love to know, sort of. So you have, again, you take these experiences. You retired from the White House, correct? Is that
Yes.
right? So, but you don't stop giving. You turn to become a life coach and as your mentor. So talk about that transition, because I would imagine that once you've finished a career at the White House, you've earned a vacation, right? Right? You've earned a break, but you haven't stopped.
No, one thing I've said, Ollie, is the life that I was fortunate to live. I mean, I couldn't have imagined that. So to me, and again, it's just like my mentors told me, like, I have to pay it forward. I don't have a choice. It's not an option. It's like, keep your eyes open, look out for others who may be able to benefit from my experiences. And what I love about it is a lot of people, they don't know my background. So I just
Mhm.
share different things, or again, ask them those powerful questions. And it's not until later on they'll say, hey, I didn't know that you did that. Why didn't you share that? Like, because I never want to come across as bragging. I never come across as I'm better than.
Yes.
No, I just say I was very fortunate to be in the right position at the right time, but I can't live in the past. I always have to live in the future. So my thing is everything that I did, it was reproducible. Even though I may have took the path of military, you can still be successful without walking the military. But the traits that they taught, you
Yes.
can easily learn those things even without being in the military. You know, having discipline, having mentors, pushing yourself to a limit where you didn't think you had it inside of you. And I always tell everybody, there's something inside all of us, and sometimes it doesn't come out. Especially, I love your talk about that audacious living. You don't get to that lifestyle without going through some things, because it really does take the challenges to really bring the best out of all of us.
You're absolutely right. And it's one of the things I constantly encourage, that you take that step, take that step, take that step. And if you want to sort of play it out, okay, so you got one or two options, right? You'll succeed or you'll fail. Okay, let's examine this. Succeed is a no-brainer. You're happy, you got what you want, life is good. If it didn't work out and you failed, okay, you've got a lesson that you figured out. You have these experiences that you now can take with you. And if you really want, you can try it again and you're a bit smarter for it. So what's the worst that could happen, right? So take that step, is what I tell people all the time.
Absolutely. One thing I have to tell people is they have to change their mindset, because sometimes the way we are growing up in life, we look at failure as, oh my gosh, that's such a bad thing. But
Right.
now when I talk to people, I tell them failure is a part of success. I can honestly tell y'all that every mission that I did, every trip that I did, I rarely learned anything from the successful ones, just being honest. But everyone that didn't work out right the first time, I learned so much. And I was able to share that with others to say, hey, I'm not sure if you guys know, but this is what happened on my particular trip because of this. Here's one way that we worked through it. Here's one thing that we did. So I would always tell people, don't stay in the mindset that failure is bad. Failure is just another way of you getting to success.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Daryl, this is so super awesome. I gotta tell you, man, I really loved chatting with you. And before we go, one last thing that I'd love to get your thoughts on. Although I kind of have a sense of where we're gonna go, I'm gonna ask you anyways, with respects to just the idea of not being able to see what's ahead of you, right? Like there's going to be instances where we'll have to make decisions. You didn't know the White House was in front of you, right? But you proceeded forward. I think of young people today and the decisions that they got to make, life decisions that we got to make at an early age, and they don't know what's in front of them. What would you say to that individual that's at that precipice, if you will, and about to take that step? What would you tell them?
Absolutely. I would tell those young people that life really is a journey. Your past does not dictate your future. And as long as you trust yourself and surround yourself with people that are going to push you to make better decisions, it's okay to take that leap, because everybody in life has taken a leap. They might not have realized it, but a lot of people take leaps all the time that they weren't sure about. It's not until you look back in your life, you're like, oh, wow, didn't think about that time, but that was a pivotal moment in my life when I made that particular decision. So I would always tell a lot of young people, trust yourself, right? Learn from your experiences, learn from those that are older than you. And just because they did it that way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. Also, I always tell a lot of young people, you guys are a lot smarter than I am, because I can't even spell app, but you guys can create these different things that make life so much easier. And I tell them that we need what's inside of you. Old guys like me, I can share some steps and some things that I did, but there's something that's only you can provide to this world. And it's in our best interest to help you get that out of you and into wherever it is and wherever you're going, because everybody's made uniquely differently. Everybody has talents. Everybody has gifts. Some of us, we use our gifts a little bit early and we figure it out. And then some of us, we're late bloomers. But the main thing is we have to live that audacious life by making those decisions. Don't be afraid to make the tough decisions. Just learn from them.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. Daryl, that's so awesome. For our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you or learn more about your work or your journey, where could we send them?
Sure. They can find me on Facebook through Alliance Seminars Coaching. They can also find me on the website, which is allianceseminars.org. And basically what I do is all those experiences that I've had in the past, I use that to help people, whether it's through coaching or doing workshops, leadership workshops for organizations, or a lot of keynote speaking. So they can bring me in and speak to different organizations, or even people that work with a lot of youth. They need a keynote speaker, even if it's virtually. They can reach out to me and they'll be surprised. The story that I have, it's like, I can't believe you're not charging us $10,000. Well, part of that is I have to pay it forward.
Got you. Well, I'm glad that you did so and continue to do so, and glad that you're here with me on the podcast today. I appreciate that you taking the time again. Congratulations on all the success and the journey that you've taken, and keep up the fantastic work, Daryl.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As Daryl shared his story, one key takeaway resonated deeply, and that's the importance of mentors in shaping our past and guiding us towards our fullest potential. Just as Daryl was supported and mentored along his remarkable journey, we can too benefit from the wisdom and guidance of those who have walked the path before us. By embracing mentorship and seeking out those who can inspire and uplift us, we can navigate life's challenges with greater clarity and purpose. Thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living podcast. Remember, living audaciously is not about avoiding failure, but about embracing the challenges as opportunities for growth and learning, because you never know where life will take you. Who knows, you might end up in the White House just like Daryl. Join us next time as we continue to explore the power of all sorts of great things like mentorship and resilience in living our best audacious lives. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been